This is a Friedtanzer from Ward's Radar, and I'm so thrilled to be speaking with Dove Cameron about Schmigadoon. How are you, Dove?
I'm really wonderful. How are you?
Good, good. We had a chance to meet briefly yesterday at the kickoff lunch for the NBC Universal, and then I saw you on the red carpet. It's a fun time to be celebrating this really enjoyable show, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's so nice to, during season one, it was still very much we were all very separated. The virus was very much at its height, and it's really nice to see the show kind of have done its thing a little bit and be able to talk to people who love the weird world that we've created as much as we do. So it feels very like joy filled.
Received any surprising reactions to the show in general, or to either of your characters?
Surprising reactions. I guess I'm always pleasantly surprised when people like it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's such a everybody who works on the show feels very much that it was created just for them, and we've heard a lot of the same things from the fans of the show. They're like, "This show was created just for me. I can't believe people are making it. I can't believe Apple is funding it," and we all feel the same way. And so, I feel like I also just feel like, we're treading on really hallowed ground. And we do it with so much love. But you always hope that that translates and it's felt with as much love as we're making it with. So I'm always pleasantly surprised when people really, really love it and they understand what we're trying to do. But yeah.
I know you spent a lot of time in the theater world. Do you have favorite musicals?
Yeah. I mean, I love, there's no musical that I walk out of that I don't feel completely transformed by. I think that's really the power of musical theater. I've said many times that The Light in the Piazza is my favorite musical. I think that Adam Guettel is a genius. I think that it is just the most romantic, touching, sort of like human experience story, and also the the care that went into scoring it, and everything that Adam wrote lyrically, musically. I think it is just transportational. I think it was always something that really affected me from a very young age. But funny enough, that's actually my only sort of more um like levity based musical that I love. And all the rest are like from this era. They're all Sweeney, Cabaret, Jesus Christ Superstar, everything from this era. Like even like, Jekyll and Hyde, the sort of like darker, more macabre musicals were the things that I really loved growing up and that I really made me want to become a musical theater performer.
What is it like starting in those as opposed to something a little bit light and fluffier like season one?
It's really nice. I'm not a fan of the sort of like more, carousel 1950s, 1940s, 50s, 60s classical musicals. I'm not a fan. They just they came in a time culturally where people were looking for like a nice evening out. Like they wanted to be quelled and have something enjoyable, just, something that felt bonding and kind of magical. And that that sounds funny to say, but that was just never really my MO. I wanted to be like rocketed into a new reality and feel like I said, completely transformed. And so this season was definitely much more up my alley in that sense. But I've had a very interesting career in that way. I think that I uh, come across as somebody very, sort of like bubbly and light filled myself. And especially when I was younger and I was blonde and everything, like I was really in that category of sort of ingenue much more than a sort of a Sally Bowles character or a Val McKelly character. And so I think it was a great gift that Cinco gave me to be able to play this role and trust me with it. And I just really had such a great time. It's one of my all-time favorite roles I've ever played.
I just spoke to Cinco a few minutes ago, and not knowing that I was talking to you next, he's like, one of the things I wanted to do was give Dove a bigger part in season two because there just wasn't as much for her to do in season one. And one thing about this show I think is cool is that it draws on so many theater people that TV viewers may not be familiar with people from these other mediums, and so it's nice to see the sort of spotlight you get. Although I'm sure season one was still very enjoyable, even in a more minor part.
Yeah, it was. It's an interesting cultural commentary, isn't it? It's like at that time when these musicals were being written, the ones that we highlighted in season one, that was sort of the extent for most of the female characters, was like, you know, Kristen's role of like the sort of older, more bitter, sort of villainous woman. And then like the young, sort of like oversexed um, male fantasy ingenue. Like there wasn't really much in between. There wasn't really much uh, attention paid to character development for female leads until really the musicals got more modern, darker, more political messaging, and everything started to be a bit more human. Even in their like extreme plot lines, you know, as time progressed, the roles for women just got much more complex and interesting. So I think that it's interesting to watch the show evolve along with the sort of political messaging of the musicals that were being written at the time.
While I wouldn't describe Jenny as bubbly, I do think she's very friendly, but there's sort of like you're like a little worried that she's so friendly because you don't know what kind of, darkness is lurking behind there.
Yeah, so the bubbliness of Jenny really comes from that Liza interpretation of Sally Bowles. It's really it's really a direct homage to Liza's kind of um that sort of like what would you call it? Almost like a defense mechanism against her pain, is this like performative joy that she was always projecting, where like everything's fine. And she's almost kind of trying to convince herself that she's not like deeply traumatized, you know, coming from such a deeply painful place in her. So the joy is actually a sort of a misdirect. And I think honestly, psychologically, when people are projecting a really joyful exterior and it feels a little bit, yeah, maybe out of the norm or oversaturated, it is typically because they themselves are trying not to face their own pain. So it's almost like the mask, what's that phrase, like a mask reveals, it's that whole thing. So it's actually an indication of that character's pain much more than anything else.
You have a favorite musical number that you got to be in this season?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's obvious, but I love Kaput. I was just so excited that I got to have my own number. I was also scared, you know, because I'm up against um, these incredible icons of not only musical theater but film and music and television. Like these are some of the best performers in the world, and I always, even in season one, I was like, what am I doing here? Like I was always really honored to even be in the same room as these people. So when Cinco was like, I'm gonna give you your own number next year, I was like, okay, happy I have a year to prepare. um but I was really excited about that. And I actually said something last night that I didn't really realize I thought, but I don't normally give myself the permission to be sexy or be like womanly in any way, because I think I do still perceive myself the way that other people perceive me, which is like quite in that sort of like younger bubble. And so I've had a harder time in my career like letting myself evolve into a woman. And I am a woman, but it's funny because, you know, I think just growing up in the spotlight, you're always like a bit tentative to like go there. But I felt really comfortable, and I was really, really excited to have that opportunity. And also as the season progresses, I get to have this really wonderful duet with one of our other incredible characters that I won't give anything away, but that was a really, really special number too.
Is there anyone that you still haven't had a chance to really substantially work with in both seasons that you would love if there's season three to do?
Yes. You know, I actually, the only person from our original cast, because obviously I would love to work with Patrick or Titus, but from our original season one cast, the only person I really, well, two people who I really haven't had the opportunity to work with, because I've worked with Kristen quite a lot on a bunch of other projects. I always love working with Kristen, so that goes without saying. But I would really, really love to have a number with Jane Krakowski or Alan, because you know Alan is one of my all-time favorite people in life, and Jane, I proposed to her last night. Jane, I think is probably the love of my life. I mean, that woman, sheesh. So yeah, that would be my bucket list for season three if that happens. But everybody, I love Jaime, I love Anne, I love everybody.
I also enjoyed watching you on a very different kind of mockery earlier this year, History of the World Part Two. What was it
Yeah,
like to be part of something that was, well, it was musical, not your part, but some of it was musically oriented. What was it like to be a part of that show?
so fun. I grew up watching all of Mel Brooks movies. My dad was a huge Mel Brooks fan, so from the time ever since I can remember, I was watching Young Frankenstein, I was watching Blazing Saddles, I was very educated on Mel Brooks from a young age. My dad was a classic movie fan. Um, and yeah, I just it was such an honor. I mean, I think if you ask any young actor about working with Mel Brooks, it's like that would be a dream. It's not going to happen, right? It's like talk about bucket list of bucket lists. So when they called me about that, when Nick called me about that, I was like, yeah, I'm there. I'll cancel anything. And also, it's just what an amazing cast of people. What an incredible comedy troupe that group is. I was just honored to be a part of it. It was really fun to have the permission to just be silly.
And something else that is a little different. I feel like it's sort of like a darker version of season one of Schmigadoon, Vengeance from last year. What was it like to be part of that film?
Yeah, it's funny. Again, I find myself in this really amazing comedy world. BJ Novak is one of my favorite um creators, I guess you would call him. He's such a multi hyphenate. I was a huge fan of The Office. And I knew all throughout watching that series, the many times I've seen it, that he was a writer on it. And so I knew that he was an incredible comedic talent in that realm. But I didn't, he was starring in it, he was directing it, he was producing it, he was writing it, and I just thought I read the script and I was like, anything that I can do to be a part of this, I'm going to do it. And we shot that like 3 years ago, so it's really wild to look back because it was ages ago, but it was really amazing. And I actually just saw Leo yesterday at the FYC thing. It's such a treat to work with all of these incredibly talented people and then see them go off and do these incredible things. It's just really like kind of the honor of my life.
We've been talking about some great TV and movies. Do you have plans to go back to the stage anytime soon?
So I would love to go back to the stage. I because I've been doing a lot of music and I'm focusing on my upcoming album. It's really interesting. The music learning curve has been intense, and it's a really different world than film and TV and stage. It's like they're almost like completely opposing things, even though we all kind of look at them as like one big industry at this point because everything is so cross-pollinated. They work almost like they're almost diametrically opposed in the way that they work and the way that they're set up and the lifestyle you have to keep. Um, and so a lot of my stage aspirations are really like kind of put on a burner to the left, not the back burner, like a burner to the left, while I finish this album because it really is it's really a daily effort to try to get this thing across the finish line and make it something I'm really proud of and something that I personally feel really resonant with. So after I do that and I get some of these film and TV projects that I've been really uh, excited about working on going forward, once all of those things kind of find their footing in their life, I would love to come back to stage. Aaron and I actually have a aspiration to bring the light in the piazza back to Lincoln Center because that was the show that I was doing right before the pandemic hit, and we were going to take it on a world tour and do a cast recording. And Adam Gettle was going back in and making some changes. He wanted to update some of the score and some of the lyrics, and it was a really exciting process to be a part of. And then the pandemic hit, and I just think Aaron is the dream Fabrizio. I don't like how would we find somebody better? And he's also just one of the greatest guys in the world. So we would love to do that.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like you have a lot going on. I wish you good luck with all of it, and thank you for taking a few minutes from your busy schedule to talk to me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're really lovely, and I was really happy to see you in person yesterday. So thank you.